Good evening. Today I would like to talk about my classroom observation. First, I want to say that why I observe in a class. The aim of this classroom observation is to gain experience about how teaching and learning process take place on a real world, how teachers' attitude and behaviors affect the learning environment, how students' behaviors affect the teaching process, and what materials and activities and methodologies are used in this process. Briefly to mention about the class, it was 8th grade. The students were getting ready for the TEOG exam, and there were almost 20 students in the class, and the teacher was young, and he has been English teacher for nearly 7 years. The topics of my presentations are the attitude of teacher, the in-class attitude, methodologies, materials, activities, feedback, and classroom management, and also physical appearance of the class. Firstly, I want to talk about attitudes of the teacher. One of the most important features of teaching process is the positive attitude of the teacher. When the teacher has been observed with regard to the role in class, it can be said that he is positive enough in relationship with the students, and he is innovator by following the technological developments in education system, and he is an supportive teacher. To start with, he was a good friend of the students. The atmosphere was friendly and positive enough to make the students feel comfortable and relaxed to express their feelings and thoughts, and this atmosphere caused to decrease the anxiety of the learners, and the teacher was making the teacher had a sense of humor. He was making jokes, and some students had nicknames such as Porsuk and Kaynana. Students were pleased to call with these nicknames. It's very interesting one. The environment was funny and enjoyable for the students, because when you see this class, you feel the relaxing environment, and also the teacher, he is an innovator. He used smartboard effectively. He used smartphones effectively in his classroom. Also, he has a kind of a website to share the information, to share some posts and other kinds of enjoyable things with the students, and he follow the technology effectively. I believe that, and he also supportive teacher. He said some supportive words to the students when they make error, or when they hesitate to do something. For example, he said to them, well done, congratulations, I know that you are good at it and you can manage it. He sometimes asks questions to the students to show them how he cares them, and there is a new student in the class, and he was silent, and he asked some personal question to these students, and students felt happy because the teacher cared him. He asked, for example, whether he adapted himself to the class or not, whether he was okay or not, and I think this is a great compliment to great compliment for a student to ask some personal questions. And also, can I say, the teacher has a learning-centered point of view. For example, students attend the class actively and violently. Students ask questions to each other, to the teacher, solve problems, discuss, explain during the class hours, and the teacher created this atmosphere for the students, and I think that it's it's very important, because students with this attitude, with this environment, students improve. I believe that students improve mentally a healthy personality and new clear word view, because teacher with his personality leaves them left them unforgettable traces by giving some examples from his own personal life and from the environment. That was a good point of the teacher. And if I were an English teacher in the future, I hope, I will be definitely keep in my mind this kind of attitudes of this teacher. Secondly, I want to talk about in-class attitude. Teachers have had large effect on the teachers have large effect on students, whether they love the English lesson or not. Although this teacher was emotionally gave the emotional support to the students, his classroom organization wasn't influential enough on students, I think. While he was creating stress-free environment, he ignored some students in his class. For example, he chose always the volunteers for the activities. Students didn't have any obligation to attend the class, to attend the activities. There wasn't so much noise. There was no noise, but also there weren't students who attend the class very energically, very what I say, very actively. Yes, very actively. But I believe that, as I observed, the reason of this silentness is the teacher stood always right side of the class, in front of the board, right side of the class, and some students were back of the teacher, and he couldn't turn always, because of that some students are irrelevant. I think that the teacher should have moved around the class and know every corner of the class. I believe that. Also, but this was the lack of the students, but in his class he checked he followed his responsibilities, such as checking the homeworks, checking checking the responsibilities of the students, like this. What I say, now I want to talk about the methodology. Students focus on the exam which they attend at the end of the class semester. Therefore, the teacher didn't give any importance to the other skills, such as speaking, writing, reading, listening, all of them, I mean. Because of that, the teacher didn't apply any certain methodologies to carry out the lesson and to improve these kind of skills. He started his lesson by showing, reviewing some vocabularies. Then he continued with a cartoon film, and he continued with the multiple choices. And during these activities, he didn't use any methodology. Just he used traditional methodologies, like translating the sentences into native language, or saying the Turkish meanings of the verbs and words, and giving explicit instruction about the grammatical structures and phrases. And unfortunately, there is no or little English in the classroom. He always used his mother tongue. He should have given some instruction or short instructions in English, but unfortunately no. During the class hours, there is no communication, there is no interaction between students and teachers. Students didn't have any opportunities to be autonomous, and this was a big point, I think, because the class was very good. There were very hardworking students. I think that they are they had an capacity to manage the English very well, to speak, to write, to read, to pronounce the words. But the teacher chose I believe that the teacher chose the easy way to prepare them for the exam. But on the other side, he has a humanistic view to teaching. Due to the fact that he decreased the affective filter in his classroom, and he made the environment relaxing and friendly. He always focused on form and sometimes focus on meaning, but just using the mother tongues explicitly. I believe that every teacher should apply a mixture of the methods and approaches to meet different needs of the students and aim of the lessons. However, the teacher didn't care his students' learning style and his needs rather than studying for an exam. A teacher should boost the enjoyment of learning a language, but this teacher didn't do it, unfortunately. I believe that although the students have studied for the exam, he could have applied the communicative approach rather than memorize the vocabularies, teach the structures explicitly, or translate into Turkish. He should have used grouping strategies to solve a problem, so the interaction could have increased more among the students. What I say more? I want to talk about again the questions, multiple choice questions. They were ready questions, preparate, and sorry for my hesitation. The questions on the net, I think that they are not suitable for the students, suitable for every student, every class, because some questions could be very easy. Some of them could be very hard according to the level of the students. But he was waiting for the answer, for the correct answer, and he was support the students. He supported the students to get the correct answer. He forced the students to get the correct answer. That was a good point for the teacher. Now I want to talk about the materials. As I said before, materials are preparate materials. The teacher didn't make any materials by himself. He used firstly PowerPoint presentation for reviewing the vocabulary. He also played cartoon films and about the chores, because the unit was 8 and the name of the unit was chores at home. The cartoons was about responsibilities at home, and there were 5 students in there, and that was a good cartoons to give the meaning of the lesson, give the meaning of the words and phrases and structures. And some multiple choice questions were used for the last part of the lesson. And he used a website. It is called Morphocampus. I believe that this website is a good choice, but there were some grammatical instructions, and it's explain the grammatical structures explicitly and in mother tongue. That wasn't good, because I believe that we shouldn't explain the grammatical structures. For example, have to. We use I, you, we, they. Have to. We use has to for he, she, it. It means that zorunluluk. That wasn't good, and the video explains all of the things in detail. And the materials, actually the materials were colorful and attractive. They are sufficient, but if they had used in a different way, because the teacher used these materials just for translation and just for giving the Turkish meanings just for the solving classical problems. But I know that lots of English teachers don't use any materials in their class hours, and they use just textbooks. Because of that, this teacher did good this job. And to talk about the activities were vocabulary presentation, translation into native language, and multiple choice questions were done as activities. While doing these activities, teacher emphasized the important words and phrases and structures. For example, dust the furniture, mop the floor, on time, in time, and also he stressed the grammatical structures like must and have to. While explaining the rules or other things, he had to interrupt the activities. These interruptions, I believe that decrease the pace and feelings of the activity. As I observed, some students got bored because of these interruptions. The activities weren't action-oriented and weren't creative enough to evoke their imagination. They were such a well-known activities that the teacher didn't need to give any instruction about what the students would do. He didn't give any information about how long the activities lasted. During the activities, some students usually attended and others didn't feel any obligation to attend these activities. If I were a teacher in this class, I will choose if I would do instead of the vocabulary presentation, I would do an crossword puzzle, or I would want students to record their videos when they were doing chores at home, and they would present it in the classroom. Or instead of translation the sentences into Turkish, after watching the cartoons, because they translate each sentences into Turkish, I would them to role play. I would them play them role. Students, after watching these cartoons, students would play role game, and it will be fun and effective for it will have an effect on students to acquire the language. Multiple choice questions they are getting ready for the exam. It's possible, but I will certainly prepare my own question, not the ready ones, because ready ones aren't suitable for my students' level. I know that. Also, I have an idea for these activities. For example, students make a survey in the classroom. They can take notes. For example, what students do at home as a chores. How many girls wash the dishes? How many boys take out the garbage? They could collect their data and make a graphic, and also they present it in the classroom. It doesn't take too much time, because the time is enough for the students and for the lesson hours, and the students, as I said before, have the capacity to make all of these tasks. So, for feedback, the teacher gave immediate feedback during the lesson. He used his body language, gestures, and facial expressions to convey the meaning effectively. So he created the positive classroom environment. Because of his attitude, students feel motivated to succeed. To illustrate, model verb. For example, to illustrate, one of the students made a mistake while translating the sentence into the Turkish. He used modal verb should instead of the phrase responsibility, being responsible. Sorry. So the teacher first said the sentence, the Turkish sentence again. As students said, but he stressed the word, and he used his tone of his voice and facial expressions. The students understood his mistakes immediately, but he didn't remember the Turkish meaning of these words. Then the teacher asked the other students to help their mates. So other students help their friend, and the students find the correct answer. That was a good and I think that is an encouraging one. And during the lesson, teacher also tried elicit the correct answer when the students give incorrect answer, as I said. This teacher used supportive and encouraging words and sentences. Good job, well done, congratulations, like this. The way the teachers gives his feedback is contributive to the learning process, and every teacher should use this kind of positive feedback, I think. The classroom management, as I said before, was okay. But before I observed the class, I asked the students whether he set some rules, classroom rules or not, and the answer is yes. And it is seen, one can see these classroom rules easily because the class was silent. At the beginning, when the teacher came into the lesson, the class was silent, and at the beginning of the lesson, also students showed their homework to the teacher, and in an order, and the teacher didn't lose any time to keep them silent. It was very good, and the teacher had a plan how to carry out the lesson. He moved the lesson to the end, towards the end, purposefully. He had an aim to teach something, and he did it in a traditional way. But he did it. And also he used his tone of voice very effectively. Sometimes he fell down his voice, sometimes he raised his voice, and just the point, he just stood the right side of the class. Because of that, some students lose their motivation and attention, I believe that. Except this, it was okay for his classroom management. And the last part is physical appearance of the class. The physical appearance of the class is one of the motivating factors to the learning process. The class was big enough to play a game, to do some activities, but unfortunately there weren't any activities which were action oriented, and but the sitting arrangement was a traditional one. There's no place for communication and interaction. Also, the walls of the classroom were empty. I think the teacher should, or students of course, should have hanged some posters, pictures about English, but there weren't any these kind of materials or things on the wall. And I believe that our classroom's physical appearance shows that how we teach the English, because when you enter a class with the lots of posters, pictures and other kind of things, some colorful materials, you feel that, oh, this is an English classroom. But this kind of class is very cool, this class was cool. There's no you can feel that the environment, in this environment students are learning English. Because of that, this is the lag of teacher and students, of course. Thank you very much for your listening. Goodbye.